morning everyone, and welcome to my channel. If you would like to subscribe, you would be more than welcome. Also, we now have a Facebook page and I will put the link down below. So today we're going to make a coat for our dolls. So I've cut out all the pieces. You'll find the pattern in the description underneath this video. So we've got the two fronts, so I've got a front and a lining, and the two backs, a back and a lining. Okay, and then we've also got our sleeves. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our two fronts like so. First thing we're going to do is take our back and we're going to just run the seam all the way down it. Now if you can cut yours on the seam, that would be great, but if not, just do it like that. I was very limited for the piece of fabric which I had, so I actually had to use just the one. So if you can do it without doing that, it would be much easier. So I'm just going to machine all the way down this back piece here. So I'm just going to run all the way down. I'll do a few stitches on, and then I'll do a back stitch, and then I'll go right to the end and do a back stitch. And can you see I've got my 1/4 inch foot? So I've got it here on the table. I'm just going to finger press it along to open it up. We're going to take our two pieces and we're going to join them together at the shoulders here and here. Okay, we're going to do exactly the same with our lining fabric. So I've got my fabric in and I've got it lined up here on that side, and I'm just going to do a few stitches on and a few back stitches, and then straight across, keeping it there. And I'm going to do exactly the same on this side here. Okay, so once you've done your outside, you need to do exactly the same with your lining. Stitch just across the two top seams. And we're just going to move on to doing the sleeves. Now what we want to do with the sleeves is take them to the iron, and we're going to just turn them up on that 1/4 inch piece of paper. So you've got your piece of paper and you've drawn your 1/4 inch line on it, and you're going to turn it over once like that, and then you're going to turn it over a second time, so you've got a nice seam like that. Okay, so I'll just go to the iron and do that now. So I've got them all nicely folded. The next thing you want to do is take them to the sewing machine and just hem them along. Now I'm using a white thread, but I would suggest you use whatever colour your fabric is, because obviously the white is going to show up. The reason I'm using it is so that you can see what it looks like. Oops, sorry, I didn't get it on the fabric. Pop it on again. So I do a few stitches on, and then a back stitch, and then all the way to the end. Oops, and then all the way to the end. And a quick little back stitch. So here we have our lining, our back piece, our main piece of fabric, and our two sleeves. And the next thing we're going to do is match them all up together and pin them together. So what you want to do is take your, I'm just going to move these out of the way for a second, take your piece of fabric, and this is your main piece of fabric, and you need to have it so that it's facing up. And then you're going to take your lining, and you need to put your lining so that it's facing downwards like that. Okay, so you've got all your stitches on your shoulders facing up, okay, like that. And you are going to pin from here, and you're going to pin all the way up here, all the way around the neck, around there and down, and you're just going to finish about there. So the next thing you want to do is you want to put your, after you've got it, I've pinned mine, but don't take any notice of those pins, just mucking around with it a little bit. So the next thing you want to do after you've got them stitch together. So you want to take your arm, and your arm has to go in like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold it in half, and where that seam is there, I'm going to come across and I'm going to pop my pin into it in that seam there. Okay, all right, and then we're going to come all the way around and we're just going to pin it so that all those pieces touch together. Now obviously you're putting two curved pieces together, and they won't quite don't really want to marry up. Okay, I'm just going to pop a couple of pins in that side. I'll do exactly the same on that side, and the reason I'm only putting a couple pins in is we're going to have to take them out in a second and put that top piece over, but I want to make sure that it's all married nicely together. So just wiggle your fabric so you've got all those pieces touching, and there's not all those edges are sort of laying flat together. And then bring this top piece up. So this is your other piece, and there's your sleeve, and there's your armhole here. Okay, I'm just going to bring it around. I'm going to lay that one in place there, and we're just going to pop our pin into it like that. All right, and then we're going to take this middle piece and we're going to join both of the seams exactly together so they lay nicely together. And then we're going to take this last piece here, so we've got these two pieces here, we're going to take that one, and that's going to be the edge of our seam, and we're going to bring it along and touch it. Can you see where they finish it? It finishes there. I'm going to join those two pieces together, and I'm going to go all the way around now with a lot more pins and pin all three layers together, but I want to make sure that they're sat so that you've got them one on top of the other and there's not one sticking out further than any of the other pieces. So I'm going to come on with a back stitch, and I'm going to go all the way around. Just take my time. So when you get to the end, just come to the end, take your time, don't rush it, and then do a few back stitches just to hold that in place. And now we're going to do exactly the same on the other arm. So here is your coat now. I've took all the pins out, and it looks a bit of a funny shape. So you've got that's your outside layer, and that's your lining fabric there inside, and these are your two arms sticking inside. Okay, so what we want to do next is to take our two arms and we want to roll them right up, and we want to tuck them right inside out of the way. And if you want to, you can put a pin just inside it so that you know that that is tucked in out of the way. It's not going to get caught up in the next lot of stitching we're going to do, because the next thing we need to do is to stitch this seam here onto this seam here. Okay, so that's the coat. So can you see how the lining is laying? That is the inside part of your coat there, and this is the outside, and we've got that big roll. I'll try and make it a little bit smaller of fabric there. Okay, if you want to put a pin in it, you can do. You just want to make sure that you're not going to stitch into it. And we're going to place that there, and we're going to poke our finger down and make sure it's out the way. And when I put my pin on here, I'm going to make sure that that goes right into that fabric and keeps it from getting near to the seam. Okay, and then I'm going to go and pin all the way. I'm going to come from here right about here. Okay, you want to put a pin about there, and then you come all the way around. So I'll just go and do that. So I'm going to do exactly the same as we've done on the other side. We're going to roll it up really small into a little log. You can see me doing that there. Roll it right up nice and small. Okay, as small as you can get it, and then we're going to bring these two seams together, put them in like that, and then make sure that's pushed right down. Join those two up and get a pin and put it in, but then push it so that it's going into that, so it stops that from moving around there. And then we're going to pin all the way around this neckline like that. So we're going to start stitching on this side. I'm going to come all the way around here all the way across that back piece, all the way down this side, and finish right here. So I'm just going to come on and do a back stitch. And then I'm going to come all the way around very slowly. Now, if you're worried and you don't like doing it because you've got your needle in that down position, you can lift your foot, move the fabric to where you want it, and then carry on. But you should be able to, if you just take it slow, just move it slightly with your fingers and you'll find it will just go around. Right, now we're coming up to where the arm is. So I'm just going to wiggle this so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so this is the arm and this is my piece of fabric here. So as I come along, I want to make sure I don't stitch into any of this fabric here. Okay. Okay, just take your time. And then you need to turn it and work all the way down. And I'm just going to finish off with a back stitch. So the next thing we want to do is, this is what it should look like when it comes out, okay? Next thing you want to do is anywhere there's a curve, so all the way around this neck here, and all the way around the arm here, the armhole here, and here, and just this little bit just here on the bottom where it's a curve, you just want to take your scissors, hopefully you'll be able to see it, and you're just going to come along and you're just going to snip just the edge of that seam, okay, quite close to your sewn line. Make sure you're getting all 3 layers, and just go around and just do that all the way around, just tiny snips all the way around. So there's your piece, and we're just going to lift up this back piece like that. We're getting a hold of that arm which is stuck inside there, and we're going to hold the bottom here, and we're just going to pull very gently, okay, and then we're going to keep pulling until all the arms out, and then what we want to do is pull the rest of the coat out. I eventually got it out, just kept pulling and pulling, and eventually it just did sort of all come out together. Okay, so that's going to be the front piece of it, and that's the shoulder, and there is your arm all stitched in nicely. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is get the other one out. So you now should have something which looks like this, okay? So the next thing that you want to do is you want to take this piece of front fabric, this is the back, and this is your piece of the front here, and you're going to take that and you're going to take the end of that piece and you're going to marry it up with the end of that piece on the bottom, okay? So the 2 bottom pieces should just come together and join up just like that, and you should sit it right underneath the arm, okay? We're going to just go along and we're going to pin it, and then you're going to do that, and then what you would do then as you would push your arm out the way, you take these two back pieces and you're going to do exactly the same with those. Pin them, that's your lining, and you're going to come straight along and do that all the way along. Okay, and 2. Okay, so you've got all those pieces together, and you're going to take this piece here. But with your other side, you're going to do exactly the same with your front piece. Push my arm out of the way. So I've got my pieces here, and you're going to do exactly the same, but when you get to your lining on the other side, you are going to leave a hole about that big for turning all the fabric through. Okay, so I'm going to just go across and I'm just going to stitch this and the other piece. So I'm just pinning it up. So I've got my sleeve piece just there, and that's the top of my lining fabric, and I want to come down just a little bit, put a pin, and if you want to make sure that you remember that you've got to have not stitch over those bits, I sometimes do that. Okay, and then you can leave yourself about a 2-inch piece and then do the same again. Right, like that, so you remember. So do exactly the same as you did with the other piece. Go along and stitch the whole thing right the way along, but leave that gap just there. Okay, so now your piece should look like this. This is the outside, this is the inside, and these are your sleeves. What you want to do now is to take your sleeves, you want to join the pieces together so you've got them nice and held together. I'm going to put a pin up here to just hold that in place there, so I know that's sitting exactly on the line. And then you want to put a pin down the side, and we're going to machine from here right the way down. There we go. I'm going to do the same on both sides. So I'm just going to run down here, do a back stitch on that cuff, and run all the way down, keeping that on that 1/4 inch line. This fabric is quite silky, but I've not had too many problems with it moving around, so I was quite pleased with that. I'm just going to get into where that meets up and just give it a couple stitches. Okay, and then do a back stitch. Lift that out. Okay, so I just want to change my foot now. So I want to do a zigzag on those arms to neaten up that piece of arm there. This one's got a much bigger mouth in there, so it goes from side to side better. I'm going to change my stitch. Now you might have one up here, over here for your different stitches, but you want a zigzag now. Okay, keep your stitch length the same. What I like to do is just to run the whole thing through on that zigzag like that. I'm going to come on a little bit, and then I'm going to do a back stitch. And make sure it's not going over your stitch line. Okay, and do a little back stitch. Now you don't really want to get any of that stitching on that lining material. Alright, so the next thing we have out to do is just to trim off all those excess threads there, which is inside the fabric. Alright, just like that, and your coat is almost finished. So we're just going to take now the base of the coat. We're going to fold the whole thing inside. So can you see we've got it here like this, like that, and your arms are inside and that, and you're going to got the piece like this, and you're going to fold the two pieces around so that you've got the whole thing inside out. And don't forget we've got that hole in our lining where we can put the, we're going to pull it back through here. Okay, so all we're going to do now is just line all our seams up together and stitch and pin all the way along those seams there, and then we're going to sew right across the top. Okay, so I'm just going to run a whole seam straight across the back of the coat. Oh my, what's happened there? Okay, what I did was I forgot to change it back to a straight stitch and it was on a zigzag. That scared me, that made me jump. So we're just going to take that and just go back from our zigzag stitch onto our straight stitch and then go straight across. Do a little back stitch and we're just going to whiz right across to the end. And just do a back stitch. There we go. So all you want to do now is find that hole and pull everything out through your hole. And that is your little coat almost finished. Take it to the ironer if you want and give it a little press. But it should lay all beautifully. So here's our hole. So now if you want to, you can just take this to the sewing machine, put it like that, there, and just stitch across it. Okay, but I'm going to use a needle and thread and I'm just going to quickly run down this seam with my needle and thread. Alright, so I'm just going to go, okay, so we're going to do a little stitch this side. I'm using white so you can sort of see it hopefully, and then push it into that fabric, but you don't want it to come out, you would just want it on the seam. Okay, and can you see how beautifully that just disappeared inside? Then you're going to go back into the other side, do a small stitch in that side and a small stitch again, but you don't want it coming out of that side, you just want it to go in that one side like that, and pull that nice and tight and that will disappear as well. Okay, keep going down until you get to the end. So here is our little coat all finished apart from the collar, and the collar I'm going to use some swan's-down. So I'm just going to hand stitch that on and I'll show you how I do that. So I'm just going to pop my needle in and pull it through, and then that knot should come, if you give it a little tug, should sit in there nicely and not come out through your actual fabric. And then we're going to take our swan's-down at the end and we're just going to put our needle right the way through, and you're going to come back through your feathers because you want to make a good anchor in there like that. Okay, and pull that one in so it's nice and tight to the fabric, and then you're going to go back through that piece of fabric again there, and then you're going to get that, and you're going to get that nice and pulled in so it's nice and tight and firm on there. And you're just going to move your needle along a little bit more, push it through the fabric again the same way as we did on the last piece, and then we're going to go in through the feathers right through, pull your needle out and then take it back in again to just roughly where you were. Okay, pull it out, there you go, and then you're just going to come back in through your seam again like that. You can check if you want to as you're going along that you're not pulling through with any stitches, because you don't really want to be able to see those stitches as you're stitching along. So you're going to carry on and do that until you get to the very end. So hopefully you can see this. This is the end where I want to cut off my swan's-down here. What I've done is I've just taken the swan's-down like that, and I've pulled that end up like that, and I've pulled that end down like that, so we've got it all sitting with as least fluff as we can get there to come off. I'm just going to take the scissors and I'm just going to snip right through it. Right, when you've done it, put that piece away carefully, and then this piece you want to just take it and pull away if there's too much on there just hanging loose. Right, and if you are if you've got problems with feathers and that, just be careful because you don't want that going all over you. Or you don't want your cat eating it, or do we, Arwen? I don't know if you can see her, she's just there. Yeah, so she's sort of definitely in the picture, aren't you? That's her tail. Yeah, so she's just come to see what I'm doing. So we're just going to do that, and then when we get to the end, we're just going to knot it up, finish it, stitch, carry on stitching down, and then put a knot at the very end. So I'm just going to tie the knot, but what I'm going to do, sorry, where are we? I don't know if you can see, she's got the cotton. I'm just going to come back in just a tiny bit so it's not on that very edge with my needle, and pull it back in out of the way. What's gone on there? She's going to get it again in a minute, isn't she? She's been a rascal, that's what she's been. Right, let's do that again. Right, okay. Oh, I've got some bits of feather stuck in it now. It doesn't help when the cat's chewed on it, does it? Right, I'm just going to come back in a tiny little way like that. Now she's decided she's going to cuddle the box, right, and then I'm going to twist my cotton and pull my needle through. Okay, and then pull it down nice and tight. And I'll just do exactly the same again, because I always like to put 2 knots in it. Okay, and then take your needle, place it inside that seam, making sure it doesn't come out the other side. No, it hasn't. And then just push it through. And we'll cut it here, but the knot will be further back down there. Right, okay, I'm going to put that needle nice and far out of Arwen's way, because I don't want her grabbing over the end. And there it is, the little coat. It's looking really sweet. That's the front, and that is the back. Looks really nice. It's come out really nice. I'm really pleased with it. I'm going to pop it onto one of the dolls and I'll show you what it looks. So here it is all finished. That looks really cute. I think that it would be really nice with a button in it, but I haven't decided. I'm thinking what I'm going to do is put a little tiny piece of Velcro in the coat. Also, I then might sew the button onto the outside of the coat just to make it look nice, but I'm really pleased with it. I think it's come out really nicely. I hope you enjoyed this video. Goodbye.